I'm so excited to be here today with author, cosmologist, and futurist Jude Currivan. She is an amazing, interesting person. I'm so excited to talk about all of her works. She has written an amazing book called The Cosmic Hologram, which is referenced extensively in the Illumination Code. She's also co-authored works with Dr. Ervin Laszlo, who've also been honored to share space with during this conversation. And, getting started with the cosmic hologram, I want to welcome you, Jude, and say hello, and thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks, Kim. I'm so thrilled to be with you, and I love the work you're doing. I mean, I see intuition as our inherent superpower. So the fact that you're helping folks to really come into this empowerment for themselves is just wonderful work. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's my passion too. So I love that we have all this complementary energy going on here. And so talking about, your work, well, I want to get started and, focus on sort of what has brought you here to this moment in time when you were able to share all of this wisdom with the world. In the cosmic hologram, you talk about some really cool stuff like information is more important than energy, matter, time, and space. I want to talk about what that means. And the holographic universe, like that in itself is mind-blowing. I think that fractals and information patterns guide us at an atomic level and a galactic level, and even that our reality is this sort of magnificent multidimensional creation that we aren't even really aware of unless we have these sort of moments of our superpowers glimpsing us through and breaking that veil and showing us that there's something bigger out there. So could you tell us a little bit about, how you sort of began on this journey? I think I read somewhere that you had multidimensional experiences yourself, even as a child, that maybe ignited your curiosity about all this.
Absolutely right. I had my first, what you might call supernormal experience. So I don't count it as being supernatural or paranormal. It's supernormal. And this is what I love, because that first experience led to a lifetime of such experiences, and ever more, expanding my awareness, but realizing that this journey has invited me into a profoundly experiential and embodied relationship with the whole of existence, the whole of creation, rather than, what I was being taught at school, and I guess you were being taught at school, that, reality is solely materialistic and made up of separate stuff. And really on a journey of curiosity, as you say, to over many, 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 many decades, be able to share an understanding now where leading edge science is coming together with universal wisdom teachings to reveal, to completely turn the old paradigm on its head, and to reveal a wondrous, living, loving, evolving universe of which we're all microcosms. I mean, it's such an empowering story, new story in your ancient story. So my journey, literally, since I was 4 years old, has been to this point, and onwards, I hope, of a continuing curiosity and a continuing awe and wonder at what that journey has brought me to perceive and experience.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head with that statement of awe and wonder. And that's one of the most powerful gifts of these kind of discoveries, is realizing that there's so much more to life than what we just see around us. There's this magical world interwoven behind it, within it, interpenetrated with it, that physics has really allowed us to reawaken that sense of wonder with life and reality, and where we come from, what we're made of. We're not just these little flesh suits that just die and go back to the earth. There's something deeper happening. And that reminds me of, you talk about in your book that everything that we call, physical reality, these flesh suits, is made up of information. And I think this is really key in the conversation we're going to have today, right? People don't realize that. I think that's it's a concept that is slow to get into the mainstream. I think that people who are studying this and have have backgrounds in this area understand it and accept it, right? It's a commonly accepted idea. but I think we're not getting enough of that message out there to understand that information is the basis of this world. So can we talk about that and how, quantum physics is really calling us to reevaluate understanding of reality?
Absolutely. I mean, it really comes down to the appearance of our world. The appearance of our universe is not its most fundamental nature. And as you say, Kim, the energy, matter, and space-time, which really the descriptions of those is the basis of 20th century science, of quantum physics for energy, matter, and relativity physics for space and time. But two things. First of all, they've never been able to be pulled together, in one way. And secondly, they themselves, even though they give us clues, those clues are being ignored for a century or more, which the clues were that mind and consciousness is not something we have, but literally what we and the whole world are. So when Einstein was sort of discovering the understanding of relative space and relative time and realizing he had to put together in what's called invariant space-time for us to exist, but also the quantum physicists were realizing that when we observe something, we change it. We cannot separate ourselves. There's no separation. There's differentiation, but there's no separation. But those clues are pushed to the side. And what we're now realizing is the appearance of energy, matter, the appearance of space-time, yes, is real, but it's not, as you say, our fundamental nature of reality. The more fundamental reality is in formation, which is cosmic mind, cosmic consciousness, cosmic intelligence expressing itself in this universal language of just two letters, ones and zeros, of information. But more than that, it's not random data. It's meaningful in hyphen formation. So this then emerges from these deeper levels of causation to create the manifested, the manifested appearance of our universe, and to put the cherry on top of the icing, on top of the cake, it does so holographically. So the whole is expressed in every part, and every part is innately, inherently, relatedly part of the whole. And all of it is living, conscious, cosmic awareness, having a universal thought that we call our universe.
Oh, that just gets me so excited hearing you talk about this, because you're talking about, just going back to what you said a minute ago about the clues, right? That there's clues about this, that we live in this living conscious universe. The universe is more like a thought than a machine, right? It's that idea. And realizing that there have been clues all throughout history, and these extraordinary experiences that you had when you were a child, that we've all had, strange moments, impossible things, they've all been clues that there's something else going on here, and that we're connected in ways we didn't understand. And it's only until in recent years, with the really the quantum revolution, that we realized that this is actually a real thing. This isn't like spooky stuff or like occult things. This is life. This is reality, right? We're part of this living universe of thought and this dynamic reality where we're all intuitively connected in some way, on some level. And which, you brought up, the holographic stuff. So we're going to have to dive into that, because I think this is one of the most fascinating parts. Obviously, it's the title of your book, so it's a big deal. But I think that the holographic universe concept is something that for the layperson can be hard to wrap their brains around. But for me, I really see it as explaining how things like intuition is possible, because we have all of that information in some way within it holographically. And one of the other things you said that light can embed vast amounts of information, one of the holograms' most important attributes. So we talk about that a little bit, and how that applies to our experience of reality and our inner knowing and stuff like that?
Be delighted to. Well, when I was researching for the Cosmic Hologram for many, many, many years, all of these aspects and pieces were coming clearer and clearer into focus. And one of the things that Einstein said that has always been my sort of North Star is this: the universe is as simple as it can be, but no simpler. And I just added to undertake its evolutionary journey, fulfill its evolutionary purpose. So I've always been guided by as simple as can be, but no simpler. So if something appears to be a bit more complex, not complicated, we humans are great at complication. The universe doesn't do complication as such, it does complexity from simplicity. But why is something as it is? And along the journey, there's always been an answer that says it needs to be in order to fulfill this evolutionary purpose and journey. So that in a nutshell is why the holographic principle is so important, because we have a universe that began 13.8 billion or so years ago in its tiniest form, but incredibly exquisitely fine-tuned, utterly interrelated as a whole, and beginning not as the first moment of, not as an isolated Big Bang. It wasn't big, we know that, but it wasn't a chaotic bang. It was extraordinarily ordered. And so I talk about the first moment of its ongoing big breath. But the point is then, if we have that sense that as time has flowed forward and space expanded ever since that first moment, within space-time, and it's and the energy matter of space-time that itself is always conserved, always changing, we now know that information is expressed as what we call quantized energy matter. But for the whole of our universe to undertake that journey, not only within space-time is light the sort of the cosmic speed cop of any information or causality, which enables us to have this whole story from the beginning. But it's a both and. Within space-time, no signal can go faster than the speed of light, which gives us an arrow of time. It gives us a causal track of that evolutionary journey. But because our whole universe is whole in itself and holographic, it knows itself in its wholeness. And because it's holographic, just as a hologram takes information from an object, collected as light, and then projects it as a three-dimensional appearance, that's what a hologram is, our universe takes cosmic consciousness on the boundary of what we call space-time and holographically projects it as the appearance of our universe. And what that does is it enables the both and. Within space-time to have that evolutionary journey from simplicity to complexity, and to be what's called non-locally unified, which means that intuition, supernormal phenomena, our ability to discern and access non-locally universal information is hardwired literally into the nature of the reality of our universe.
Wow. And you know, you have such an amazing way of talking about these really deep, incomprehensible things and making them understandable. So thank you for that. That was beautiful. And I think that that is really the core of it. I love that, you know, hollow wired. We're all wired and we're all connected by this light and we're made of light. And so, okay, here's another quote, speaking of which is, so you talk about us being pixels of light. Okay, so one of the quotes in your book, and this is one of my favorite quotes, you say, pixels are the single points and smallest programmable components in a graphic image. Nowadays, the development of high definition media has increased the number of pixels enormously, and an image appears to be continuously visual no matter how close you approach. Cosmologists are beginning to view space-time itself as being pixelated. And I think that's something that's a way we can understand things, right? Because we wouldn't have known that 100 years ago. What's pixelation? We didn't have computers, but now we can wrap our brains around it a little bit, right? So is it a little bit, okay, so I have a background in technology and, you know, I worked in gaming and technology for years. And so, of course, one of the questions I want to kind of segue this into is it a little bit like a simulation we're living in, that we're all made of light that's projected in this sort of world, this reality for us to, virtual reality to live in?
I always shy away from that term simulation because it comes with a lot of baggage. And for me, it comes with a lot of baggage that basically that the premise is that somehow an advanced civilization created this universe and so us. And I find that approach to be very disempowering
Yes.
on the one hand. Secondly, it sort of puts us as pawns rather than microcosmic co-creators of our universe.
Mm.
And thirdly, there's no evidence for it.
Mm.
Whereas all the evidence that I write about in the Cosmic Hologram, and then my latest book, The Story of Gaia, builds on this evidence of literally a living, loving, evolving, non-locally unified, holographically manifested, innately informed universe. And where we do, where we are co-creators, or we are microcosmic co-creators of its evolutionary journey. We're not just plumped here through somebody deciding to have a game.
Yeah, it's not like there's a controller somewhere who's like creating obstacles for us. It's something that we manifest from within us and that we create with our thoughts and ideas and our connected information, right?
Yeah, I mean, the sort of the challenges and all the rest of it, that's part of life. But, and we can choose in many ways how to respond to those. But the point of a simulation and the idea of it being virtual reality, just sort of, for me, it just pulls the rug from under the feet that we're just finding ourselves regrounded in our own empowerment and our own destiny and potential for conscious evolution. That's why I sort of go, I get very grumpy.
No, and I understand that completely, because we want to look at it as something that's part of us, not something that's separate from us, right?
This is it. It completely does that. It still keeps up the separation paradigm, and it's still, with that separation paradigm, which all the evidence is showing us is fallacious, is illusory.
Right.
It keeps that going, and it also kicks down the road and into the long grass the nature of mind and consciousness.
Right.
It doesn't address any of that.
Right. And I think that circles back to, the beginning of the conversation when you talked about how it's our appearance, right? It's the appearance of real. It doesn't mean that it's an illusion or that it's not real, right? The manifestation is just how it appears, right?
Yeah. And isn't it genius? I mean, I once said when I saw all this came together in the cosmic hologram and all that I've just shared very briefly, I sort of said at a talk, I was going, I wish I'd thought of that, because it's utter genius. The creation of our universe literally is as simple as it can be, but no simpler. But what an amazing creation to enable its evolutionary journey from the absolute simplest to this incredible level of complexity and individuated self-awareness over 13.8 billion years. And when you talk about pixelation, Kim, I just want to say that the best high definition holograms we have, the pixelation of space-time, is trillions of times smaller than that.
Crazy. It's unimaginable, right? It's unimaginable. We can't conceive it. It's such a beautiful, it is magical, it gives us that magic back. Like, wow.
It is. And yet that's what the evidence, I mean, I can share all of this and we can have this conversation because this is what the evidence is showing us. And it's the evidence at all scales of existence.
Right.
Many different fields of research, which is what's so good.
Yeah, like it's the macrocosm, the microcosm, it's all the whole thing. It works on every level. So that's really an indicator of truth, I would say.
I agree. And after the cosmic hologram was published, two things happened again that I write about at the beginning of the story of Gaia, and extra evidence in case you needed it. In 2017, a group of cosmologists looked out at the whole of space-time, and there's something called the cosmic microwave background that is relic radiation left over from a very early epoch in our universe. And as space has expanded, that radiation's continued to fill the whole of space. That cosmic microwave background was analysed in 2017, and there are tiny temperature variations within it. And they too show the fractal patterns that are shown at all scales. So we've got the fractal patterns coming up at all scales to the whole of those temperature variations in space-time. And then in 2022, the Nobel Prize for Physics, which is only given for settled science, nothing controversial,
Yes.
only settled science, was given to 3 researchers who'd been studying universal non-local wholeness and entanglement for decades. Yeah.
Excellent. I
I
did not
know.
know that. That is great news. That is great news for the future and for our understanding of the world. Wow. Wow. So you kind of go on and talk about like this sort of, speaking of evolution of things, in your second book in your trilogy that you mentioned, The Story of Gaia, talking about how we sort of live in this living created reality and how all of this applies to life, it sounds like. So I'd love to hear, just in your words, a little bit about your experience with circling back to intuition, which is something I think a lot of our readers are really interested in, how all of this really comes down to our experience of evolution and growth, because like we're all on our journey to raise our awareness and to understand reality and to become more one with that great cosmic force of wisdom. And yeah, I'd be curious to know, like, just in a few words, of how you tie that all together and that sort of experience of inner wisdom and inner growth.
Well, intuition is our superpower. Perhaps it's most our fundamental superpower. Even if we may not have developed our sort of skills of telepathy, precognition, whatever it may be, I think I've not yet come across anyone who hasn't had intuitive insight.
Yes, right.
The question is whether you listen to them or not,
Yes,
whether you follow them or not.
exactly.
Oh, and I think both you and I would say, listen, follow.
Yes.
There are guides. It's wonderful. And the other aspect that I often tie in with intuition are synchronicities. Now the old paradigm of science of a separate material universe doesn't have any place for intuition or synchronicities, let alone no place for love.
Yes.
Let alone no place for mind and consciousness per se, as a universal aspect of reality. This emergent understanding envelops all of this within a lived reality. So when I wrote The Story of Gaia, or more so, The Story of Gaia wrote me, it is the story not just of our planetary home as a living sentient being, but the whole universe as a living, evolving, therefore sentient, unified entity. So I went right back to the beginning of the simplest, and I invited and I showed up for the whole universe telling me that story. And it literally flowed through me. And as it flowed through me, I was realizing that when I talk about the big breath of the universe, this ordered, continuing out breath of space and flow of time, the big breath of our universe was flowing through me. I was entering an ever deeper, more intimate relationship. And of course, the ancient Vedic tradition of ancient India, the word for breath is the word for spirit. So being written by this story, I came to the end of it I began in awe and wonder. I almost ended up being speechless in such a feeling of love and such a feeling of belonging to our beloved universal story and our beloved planetary home. So that for me was the greatest gift of being privileged to write the book. And it's a privilege and a gift that I hope every reader of the story of Gaia can be invited into, because it seems to me that at this moment, we are receiving an invitation from the universe to remember.
Oh, I love that. It's like I want to just pause for a moment and digest that. That was so beautiful and such a perfect way to wrap the science in with our personal experience and our growth and spirituality, and just witnessing this come together, and you so eloquently express these ideals. Really, it moves me to know that this is actually happening. Finally, this is becoming a reality where we're all being able to understand these things that were separate are now unified. And how extraordinary that sort of feeling of almost enlightenment is when you have that union and went back to that remembering. I love that. It is like a remembering. It's a coming back to yourself, a coming home back to your
Yes.
true reality.
Absolutely. And one of the things that, I've been involved with over the last couple of years based on this is drafting a unitive narrative. We're a narrative sharing species. We've used narratives from the get-go to give meaning and purpose to our lives. But recently, our narrative has been one of separation and meaninglessness and purposelessness, and now we're able to not just remember, but we're able to write a new story, which is an ancient story, but it's now, because of the leading edge science, which is converging with all these incredible wisdom teachings, it can be an evolutionary narrative, a unitive narrative that then can underpin and frame and empower us to come together, not just in
Yeah.
our own lives, but to link and lift up with each other,
Yes.
to support transformational change. So this is why I feel this is such just an incredible moment of our collective choice. And we have the evidence, we have the opportunity, we have each other. We can do this.
Amen. Amen to that.
Or as I say,
Yes, we can.
women or a women.
Exactly. A women. But I mean, that is really how it all comes together when we think about it globally and in a really practical way of how it can create huge transformation, is understanding that all of this talks about that we're unified, that we are connected, we are one, and to stop focusing on what divides us and focus on what unites us. And this is a huge part of what brings us all together.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your deep, deep wisdom today with us, Jude. It has been such a pleasure talking with you and learning from you. And I can't wait to read your third book, which is coming out next. So we'll be sure to check out all your books. And I'm excited to see what wisdom you're going to be bringing forth next.
Bless you. Well, it's the wisdom of Gaia. It's the wisdom of our universe. I'm just the person who shows up, hopefully gets out of the way and writes it down.
Using that intuition, right?
Using that intuition all the time.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bless you, dear. Thank you so much.
Thank you.